Hello and welcome to another episode of Adventures in Local Marketing, the podcast that tells the stories from the front line of local marketing. I'm your host, Christian Bannister, Head of Marketing at BrightLocal. And on today's episode, I'm talking with Jason Brown, who fights on a very specific front line of local marketing, spam. It's no secret that spam is a big issue within local SEO, and Jason is undoubtedly one of the most knowledgeable people about spam in the industry. Jason is a local search analyst and spam fighter at Sterling Sky. He's a leading expert in online reviews and the dangers of fake online reviews, and he's appeared on national TV talking about this on the Today Show, CNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC. He's been everywhere. So honestly, this is a really good opportunity to learn from somebody who knows this inside and out. So I wanted to sit down with Jason to learn more about it. What exactly is happening with spam in local SEO right now? Why has he decided to focus so specifically on spam? And ultimately, what can you learn to help you in your efforts in fighting spam? So I'm going to hand straight over to my chat now with Jason. So to kick things off, I'd like to take you back to the very beginning of your career. Tell me, how did things start out for you?
Yeah, so I was just working in a call center, trying to figure out, what I wanted to do, going back to school part-time. And I ended up buying our condo and met my neighbor, and he was doing web design for casino. So this was back when, casino SEO was all the rage. So he was super busy. He said, hey, I need to hire a project manager. As soon as I got hired, the government came in and shut down the entire online gambling industry. So we had to do like a massive pivot. So I think my first client that I was working on, we just did web content for male masseuses. So if you can imagine what that entailed, yes, it pretty much was what you're thinking. And then, we had a few clients that said, hey, do you know anything about this SEO thing? And my boss, was like, yeah, sure, I do. And so we looked, and, this is when we were, doing directory submissions and buying a ton of citations and links and forums and blog comments and article spinning and, you name it, the Wild Wild West pre-Panda Penguin, so pretty much did everything under the sun. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We built fake Google My Business listings. We bought fake reviews for those listings to make them into lead gen and make them attractive. I ended up seeing, that sting that Yelp did with the New York State Attorney General in New York, where they set up a fake shop and got a bunch of fake reviews. And then that's when I saw the dangers of it. And I was like, okay, ever since then, I've been like, I'm not even going to risk it. Like, I don't want to pay that type of fine or sort of that type of penalty. And so then I was just like, okay, I'm not doing it. I learned the dangers of it and some black hat-ish stuff, gray hat. But it wasn't until I got into spam fighting that I actually had to go 100% straight legit.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you learned the dark arts of it by doing it, and in a way that kind of set you up to really have a unique perspective on it. So you knew what the tactics were. So when it came to going to the other side of the law, you were really well positioned to make sure that you were focusing on the things that people were up to then.
Yeah, so I ended up getting the job as an SEO manager for a nationwide franchise. The CEO pulled me aside and took me out to lunch. He says, okay, before you start doing anything, you need to know that you have to stay above board. Anything you do can severely hurt the brand. Can't have a manual action. They can't have their site de-indexed. They can't get in any sorts of trouble. And so that's when I really had to go straight by the book. Don't mess around. Don't try and trick Google or do any of that stuff. But we had a franchisee who was struggling with his marketing, and the issues actually turned out to be the way the paid ads account was set up. But he decided he needed to go and buy a bunch of fake reviews off of, I think, Fiverr. And so I ended up contacting Mike Blumenthal and said, hey, Mike, can you help me? He's like, yeah, sure. Go to the Google My Business forum, create a thread. Well, it took us 3 months to get Google to actually take out 93% of the reviews. So they left one review up. Mike and I were kind of talking, and he says, this is really frustrating that it's taking Google so long. Why don't we do a project? So it's the first time I actually got to work with Mike Blumenthal, and so it was just like jaw hit the ground, if you can imagine, because Mike Blumenthal is just larger than life. So we started mapping out fake reviews. I had a few friends encourage me to do review fraud, and so I just kind of started going that route. I reached out to a few reporters here and there. So I got to work with some, I got to meet and work with some really great news reporters. And by the time NBC LA picked up the story, it was all over. I mean, the NBC LA, I love them so much in Los Angeles, but they've been super helpful and great to me. Once they picked up the story, all the other affiliates stations started reaching out to me for stories in their area. And then one thing after another, we got picked up by CNBC, which was, really crazy to actually, see my face on CNBC, for their coverage. I mean, I was like way down in the story too, which was really, really funny, because they went to local U, and so they talked to Mike Blumenthal and Joy and Tom Waddington, but there was my face on CNBC. And the story was actually above the incident at that Philadelphia Starbucks where they kicked out the two black gentlemen, because they said that they were loitering and they called the cops. But yeah, it's just strange kind of seeing yourself on TV, and then the legend was born.
So I don't know a huge amount about fake reviews in terms of the scale of it in local. I know that there's obviously a lot spoken about how it's being massively manipulated on the likes of Amazon and in e-commerce. But can you tell me just a bit about what fake reviews currently look like, or has it changed over time? Was it a bigger deal back then, or is it still such a big problem?
Yeah, so it's always been a problem, and I don't think we really truly spoke about what fake reviews look like on a landscape 7 years ago, 4 years ago. So I think the first issue was it was a marketing tactic. So you had to go and create your Google My Business listing. At that point, it was called Google Places, because we've had different iterations of it. But what was said was create your listing, ask a bunch of people to review you right off the bat, and boom, you were golden. That was your instant ranking source, right? Mm-hmm. Get anywhere from 3 to 7 reviews and be done. Well, Fiverr was heavily popular at that point in time, and you can easily go onto Fiverr and buy fake reviews. You still kind of can. You have to know how to go look for it, but so people would go in and buy reviews, and so you saw just a 3-year period of just a lot of the same nonsense fake reviews, and I've actually seen that actually taper off quite considerably. So a lot of businesses just aren't doing it anymore. I think the education campaign is getting out there where they're just like, hey, you don't want to trick your consumers. Great companies are out there promoting safe practices. But that was just one part of it. We still see a lot of the review gimmicks where, people run review contests, and I get contacted all the time. Some apartment complex got a negative review, and so they're having a raffle for a $10 gift card giveaway. We still see bad marketing companies promoting bad practices, the giveaways, the raffles, all that.
Yeah.
There's still some, review gating where people are trying to, stop negative reviews from being posted, and they only want their positives. Lawyers, I think, have finally cleaned up some of their act. The other thing, they would always have like their friends and colleagues like review them. Oh, I know so-and-so is a great lawyer from back in the day, but they weren't, legit customers. But I think as consumers are starting to become more aware of reviews, and they're looking at more reviews, thanks to, a lot of the great stuff that BrightLocal's been putting out there about the review studies, we're now seeing that consumers are not just taking reviews at face value. Like they're doing more homework, they're doing the research, they're checking multiple sites. So I thank BrightLocal for helping that education process. And I think we're seeing a shift where people are not believing as many of the fake reviews. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not still seeing them. A lot of these fake, lead gen listings that are popping up, they just get peppered with a few fake reviews, make themselves look legit. I think it's just the shady people that are doing more of the buying and selling of fake reviews. But they still promote them on Facebook. I see it all the time. Hey, I'm offering Google reviews. Hey, I'm offering Yelp reviews. I'm offering TripAdvisor reviews. So I mean, there's people still trying to do it, but I don't think it's a sustainable business model at all.
Yeah. Interestingly, I feel like I see some of the tactics that are being done quite openly in different industries. So, there are review platforms themselves who will be giving away Amazon gift vouchers openly to basically leave reviews for different services, different providers. But it seems to be considered a really bad tactic in local. Do you think that there's just instances where a lot of businesses don't actually realize that some of these things are considered shady tactics?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot of businesses that don't know any better. So you hire a junior level marketing person and they don't have experience. I mean, I didn't realize, that you're not allowed to go in and buy reviews, because, just doing marketing, I didn't realize, hey, if you do this, you can get into trouble with this. So I think there is a lot of businesses that don't know any better, especially when you get into like some of the fake listings. It's just like, we just want to promote our business. So we're going to have Steve create a listing in his house. We're going to have Jerry create a listing in his house. And so they're not thinking, hey, this is violating the platform's terms of service, or, hey, this violates state, local, or federal laws. So they're not thinking about that, because unless you're like really, really super shady, you're not going to get penalized. And we do see some of those great cases that make national news, So the FTC went after and redressed Sage Auto, right? And so Sage Auto ended up having to sell their dealership because of all of their, unscrupulous marketing practices. I mean, it wasn't just the fake reviews. They were also doing, some shady, deceptive, bait and switch marketing tactics. But people don't think that they're going to get to that point where they're going to get into that much trouble.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is when you start pushing the envelope and the boundary just a little and you cross a line, well, you have another line to cross and another line, and another line. And next thing you know, you look back and you're like, you're doing some really shady, illegal stuff that can, have a lot of, negative ramifications. Then we're not talking just fines. We're talking criminal charges and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I guess there is just a real scale, and maybe there are some instances where people are doing things which feel small, but over time build up into stuff that could get them into a lot of hot water.
Yeah.
So what was your sort of process for really trying to understand and identify fake reviews? Are they just glaringly obvious, or did it take a bit more detective work?
It was abundantly obvious.
Okay.
There was another company that I was looking at, and they crossed my radars. I saw somebody tweet about having a bad experience with company A, and so I wanted to look them up. So I found the person's, Yelp profile. I found the two businesses that they left negative reviews for, and I was like, okay, well, which business was it? And so I look and I see, and I'm like, this one business, I'm pretty sure it's them. They have the worst Yelp rating. I think they were like at a 2-star rating or a 1-star rating. And then when I looked at them on Google, they had a 4.7 rating. And I sit there and said, okay, wait, this just can't be correct. And so as I opened up their reviews on Google, I noticed a pattern like right away. It was like, okay, reviewer A reviewed these 7 businesses. Reviewer B reviewed 5 of these 7 businesses. And then reviewer 3 reviewed 13 businesses and 7 of the ones that were reviewed by reviewer 2. And so it's just like, okay, it became so obvious. And so, you just start clicking on the reviews. And this was back before, Google came in with their, GDPR, and allowed, reviewers to hide their reviews. But it was just so easy to just map out, a whole profile and see all the businesses they were reviewing. And I got up to 6,000 businesses, all with these fake, fraudulent, and suspicious reviews. And, it just started with like a spider web. So if you think about starting at patient 0 and it just starts spidering out to the next layer, and the next layer, and the next layer, some of these reviews were just, I mean, ridiculous. They would use celebrities. Some of my favorites was Kevin James's profile photo, but the name was James Kevin. Miley Cyrus left reviews using her name. Of course, she reviewed multiple businesses for the same product. It was just a lot of reviews that just didn't pass muster. And so it was just like, people weren't really being like super clever about it, because there was no reason to hide it, right? Because Google's not going to penalize you. The government's not really going to go after, 6,000 businesses. So it's kind of how it was. Since I did that BrightLocal webinar, we've seen, change in their MOs. Now we're seeing another change in MO. So I usually don't like to get into the how they're doing it, because every time I do, they change up their MO and make it a little bit difficult for me to find them, but I still find them.
So how about when you've found a business where it's abundantly clear there's loads of fake reviews? What does that process look like? Is there a formalized process for actually flagging a business, or is it done on an individual level at a single review?
Usually I don't really go after a business. So when I was running review fraud, I would just add them to my state list. If I had time, then I would try and do like a whole write-up about the business and kind of show examples there. But I just started getting so much hate mail and threats that it got to the point where it's just like, I just didn't want to have to deal with fake lawsuits. I mean, I went through a fake lawsuit. I had a threat of litigation. I had some nasty, nasty death threats from one marketing company, and I got so much abuse and hate mail that I was just like, I leave it alone. If I can, I try and go after and report the fake reviews just to, make a dent and clean stuff up. But honestly, I'd much rather just go after the illegitimate businesses and get them nuked. I can take out 30 fake reviews for a business, but that's not really going to hurt them that much. But if they've got, 17 lead gen listings, and I can get those 17 additional lead gen listings knocked out, they're going to feel that a lot more than they're just going to feel a few of their fake reviews getting knocked down.
So let's talk about your shift over to fake listings and spam on listings. How was that significantly different to working with reviews?
Yeah, so that was one that I fell into again by accident. I always was like very hesitant to get into fake listings. I didn't feel like I had enough education to go after them. I mean, yes, I created a bunch of fake listings here and there and watched how Google would come in and wipe them out. But I thought there was just some more nuances to fake listings to go after that I didn't really want to like spend too much time on it. So there were a couple businesses that I got really good at identifying and reporting. And so I just kind of stuck with that as my wheelhouse. It was like, oh yeah, these are obviously fakes, they're interconnected. I had a few people contact me and hire me to, knock out their competitors and their fake listings. And I was like, okay, I just kind of got pretty good at doing that. But last year, I mean, I really, truly made the switch to start going after fraudulent businesses. And this was before I joined Sterling Sky. And I think it's kind of one of the reasons why I ended up being able to join Sterling Sky. But I noticed that there was just a lot of fake and fraudulent listings in my area. So not only in my city, but people were using my neighbor's house. And it was just so out of control that I just sat there and said, you know what, I can't not do something. I can use my skills for good, or I can use my skills for evil. And most people don't know this. My wife's company was taken advantage of, and they were out $60,000 from a bad company. And the company also had a bunch of fake reviews. And so when you go through that experience and you watch a company, almost have to lay off people because they had an event and they're out all this money, it really makes you think about things differently. And so as I started seeing spam in my area, I was just like, all right, I like to stop crap on the map hashtag. So I started, pushing stuff out like how, ridiculous this is. But, last January and February is when the fake lawyer listing network, just started getting out of control. And so a lot of people were talking about it. I started looking into it, and then I was just like, yeah, going after fake listings is a lot of fun. I've got some tools that I can go through. And Miles, I don't think Miles believed me when I said, how many listings I could I could go through a report. When I did that webinar, I mean, I heard him have that question, and it said like, really? Are you sure? And so I did it. I went through one Saturday morning. I documented 468 listings, and it took me 3 hours and 20 minutes from start to finish. A colleague of mine asked me to help out with some networks, a year ago. And so he and we ended up teaming up on this. And I just started like really, truly honing my skills. And then now that I've been working with Sterling Sky, I've had to get even better with my skills. I've actually had to elevate my game just looking for one-off fake reviews, not just, these massive fake, listing networks, but, actually trying to go and find the fake and scuzzy and scary listings. And so I've got a lot more tools in my utility belt that I can just sit there and go, all right, fake, zap, 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 zap.
Okay, cool. So hopefully there'll be no new tactics that are going to take you by surprise anytime soon. But it sounds like you're getting a really streamlined process for doing this the more you've been doing it. For, I guess, the uninitiated, what do we mean by fake listing, right? Are there different types of fake listings, or is it tend to be that there's just one or two ways that people go about this?
Yeah, so there's different types of fake listings. So there's just I made a listing at my home address and I didn't hide it. I classify that as a fake listing. That's just, a fraudulent listing, violates Google's terms of service. But if you create 3 listings at your home address for different businesses, then that's where it's like, okay, well, that's where you're starting to get a little too egregious for my liking. A lot of times people are trying to do G&B listings for online only businesses, which doesn't qualify, and so you'll see the Lululemons and all those, multi-level listings start getting created. And so then those ones have to get taken out. And it could just be somebody not knowing, somebody actually just trying to go out there and mass produce listings on the scale. And so you see a lot of it with phone apps becoming really popular now. So, we're starting to see people are trying to create listings in different cities, and then they'll go and they'll, rent a bunch of virtual offices. And, that's where you're like, okay, now you're crossing into, a different realm. There's the companies that'll have like their service technicians create listings at their houses just so they can have a better dominance and prominence in their area. But then they take it they take it a step further and they start dumping those listings with like fake reviews. Or you'll see, a lot of reviewers reviewing the same businesses for the same company. But then there's also the scary, darker side that, a lot of us talk about, and people don't like the fact that we talk about it. But there's fake urgent care listings, or fake emergency dentist listings. Lily Ray has been tweeting about, the spam in the rehab industry. So, there's a lot of, really shady stuff when it really impacts people. The lawyer listing last year, somebody actually came out and said that they were actually selling leads to like eLocal. And I'm not sure if it was just the lawyer listings or if it was just a lot of the practices that were happening. So you do a Google search and you find ABC Plumbing and somebody comes to your house, chances are it's not going to be ABC Plumbing. Now you have no idea who's coming to your house. And, you and I, we have kids, right?
Yeah.
We're going to let some stranger that we can't truly identify come into our home where our kids are present. And that's where you see a lot of stories of appliance repair where they come in to replace a part on the washing machine or the dishwasher. They ask for $750 and then they never come back with the part that they allegedly had to order. But then when you go and look for them online, the listing's already been taken down and possibly reported by somebody. So you're out all this money, you let some stranger into your house and you have no idea who they were. So it was a blessing with COVID. So Google actually shut down, the ability for a lot of business listings to get verified. We saw like a whole slew of increases on the G&B forum. Hey, my listings, been verified and pending for weeks or months. So it was kind of nice. Like Google actually stopped fake listings and fake reviews. Like it was like really wild. Like all of us PEs were like, hey, you believe it? It actually worked. They actually stopped spam. And then Google said, all right, we're going to allow listings to start appearing on Google. We're going to start allowing reviews. And then it was just, I mean, it's been over like a wildfire. So, I mean, it's completely out of control. I think in a 2-week period, I reported 2,000 fake listings that were all straight lead gen. Last week, I reported 299 listings on Tuesday. Sunday night, I had to go and report an additional 268. So it's like just within 4 days, there's more listings. So these guys are just pumping this nonsense out like crazy, and they don't care. They're actually thumbing their nose at everybody and giving everybody the finger and saying, you know what, cool. You want to delete, our listings? Guess what? We're going to add more. Google, I don't think Google's going to be able to combat it per se. I think the government's just going to have to come get involved and take over the reins and controls of Google. And I think the FCC, here in the United States and various governments are going to have to go in and start cracking down on these businesses that are doing it. But I think they're going to have to find the true source behind it and go after those guys, because I don't see it ending until they can take those players out.
Yeah. Do you think it's on those kind of authorities to put some pressure on Google as well as trying to find the biggest culprits?
Oh, I definitely think so. Google is under that antitrust lawsuit right now. So every governor in the state is actually on board with the state AG. So there's a lot of pressure to go after Google. The Trump administration has been putting a lot of pressure on Google because of the way that they're perceived in the press and the way the news is covering. And there's a lot of pressure coming to Google, and I don't think Google has the friends that they used to have when the country was democratic. Google's very liberal. They had their own money being pumped into Congress. They had people that owed them favors. I don't want to get into the full political landscape, but I don't think Google has that likeness anymore. So I think there's a lot of people that are really getting truly upset with Google. And I think all the noise we keep making in the press about fake listings and fake reviews, it's got a lot of attention that I don't think Google can just easily just squash it with their little puff PR piece. Hey, we take fake listings and fake reviews seriously. We stopped X amount of listings, X amount of fake reviews, took action here. I will say, though, I think this is interesting. Google My Business has never had a public Google employee to have a public face. So, we all know Gary Eash, we know John Mueller, right? But now all of a sudden in the last several weeks, Danny Sullivan, and I've always told people, don't bug Danny Sullivan, don't bug John Mueller, don't bug Gary. It's not going to do anything, right? But all of a sudden, like Danny Sullivan's like, hey, yes, thank you for bringing that to attention. We're actually working on it. You should see some changes in garage store space. Yes, we are looking into the rehab space. So it's like all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. We actually have a local search liaison now. Like somebody is actually there and being proactive and communicating. And I was like, okay, so maybe we'll see some shifts and changes with Google. A couple of weeks ago, they told all the local guys that they now have a way that you can flag a profile. So I think that's a step. But the problem is if you flag something and it doesn't go anywhere, just like doing a suggested edit on a keyword stuffer or a fake listing and it doesn't get actioned, well, now you can go to the redressal form. They need to have some form of redressal form for fake profiles and fake reviews, because just flagging it, Google will look and see and say, okay, yeah, we're taking action, we're not taking action. But you need to actually have extra steps that you can do. You can come to the GMB forum right now and have us look at stuff, but there's so many requests that come in. Like Google needs to have a full department just for those second looks.
Yeah, it's an interesting move, really. And I guess if you think about it, sometimes these figureheads are there to talk to effectively the SEO community, right? They're the ones asking the questions. But if you think of something like Google My Business, how many business owners themselves are directly impacted by a lot of these things? There's potentially hundreds of thousands and millions of people who basically have no line of communication to something that's really, really dependent for their business. It seems crazy.
Yeah, and COVID definitely did not do anybody any favors. So, Google had to shut down phone support. They had to shut down social support, chat support's offline. So you only have email support, which is severely backlogged and underwater because you've got everybody going there, or you have people coming to the G&B forum, and our hands were severely tied for months. So we couldn't even contact Google for issues. Now we can push stuff, but we could only contact Google if it was like dire need. So like when we were having the Google posting issues that were happening, now there's a couple other issues with G&B. We're waiting to get fixed and escalated. You can't open your listing. There's a lot of pressure on volunteers to be that buffer between business, consumer, and Google. Yeah, we say, reach out to us. We'd love to help you, but honestly, it's just there's so much and so many issues and so little time and little of us that it's just it's severely overwhelming. And we have quite a few spammers that come to the G&B forum. They push a bunch of legitimate issues down because it's just like, hey, my listing got suspended. And I look and I'm like, yep, I know why your listing got suspended. And then they come in with a different profile and it's a different one of their listings. And I'm like, yep, I know exactly. So there's like one industry that comes all the time, and I just sit there and go, yep, if it's that pattern criteria, I just ignore it.
What's that one industry? Is that the most common industry for fake listings?
It's moving companies in India. I'm sorry to say, but every time they come with a brand new profile, I look, I'm like, oh, this profile was just created today. Their business name fits X model, and I just sit there and go, nope, ignoring it. Because even Google's like not allowing them to get reinstated. So somebody said the best thing to do is just keep pleading your case and be like, oh, but my business is out, is hurting. I'm gonna lay people off. Like laying on that whole, sad, oh, woe is me tale. It doesn't work. If we can't get your listing reinstated, then we can't get your listing reinstated. And I had somebody come to me at the local search forum, and they just kept going back and forth and back and forth. I was like, and I told him, I said, look, I'm a volunteer. I'm not Google. I can't get Google to fix something. You need to go and talk to Google. If they're sitting there saying, no, they're not going to let your listing get reinstated, that's it. Google's ultimately in control. We can suggest stuff to them, but we can't get Google to change their mind.
So you joined Sterling Sky at the beginning of the year. Can you tell me a bit about Sterling Sky for those who don't know, and what attracted you to join them?
So Sterling Sky, we do all forms of digital marketing for local businesses. So anything from content, technical audits, on-page SEO, paid ads, we do everything. So we do a lot of tracking and metrics. We set up BrightLocal, we set up Places Scout. So we are all about tracking and showing results. The thing that drew me to Sterling Sky, I was speaking at PubCon and I was hanging out with Joy Hawkins, and she hit the craps table, and my goodness, I saw her in a completely different light. She asked so many questions of the guy at the table. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? And I just watched how she tackled it, and she ended up, almost doubling her money. And it wasn't a lot of money, but she kept asking questions. She didn't take an answer. It's just an answer. She was like, well, why is that? And so I realized just how smart she was and how she takes stuff a lot further. And I've known, a couple people, there. So, I've known Dave, I've known Colin, I've known Jan, so it just kind of felt like, all right, I'm going to go join a family. She's like, yeah, I really just want you to just be our spam fighter, so you get paid to fight spam. I'm like, really? I'm going to get paid to just do that? Like, I don't have to worry about reporting. I don't have to worry about metrics. I get to just do that and then speak in my free time. I was like, and you're going to pay me? I'm like, okay, you got it.
So when new clients are coming on board at Sterling Sky, I guess what percentage of them come your way? Because I guess some industries are more typically going to be dealing with a landscape of fake listings. And also, are they even aware that that's happening?
Well, so when they hire us and they're needing help with their visibility in their markets, they sit there and they come to any SEO company and say, our leads are down, we're not getting the calls, and so we'll go and we'll do an audit. Dave, Brian, or Colin will go and they'll do an audit, and they'll be like, hey, do you see these guys in your market that are creating fake listings? And they sit there and go, no, I didn't even know that. That's interesting. Or they'll say, yeah, I've got some spam in our industry. And so then when it comes time for, me to take a look at their account and they come on as a client, and I'll do like, an hour, 2 hours, in one shot. And I list out all the fake listings that we found and reported. And they sit there and they go, wow, I didn't realize we had that much spam in our markets. And the nice thing is I don't know if I should say this, but we actually give them the links to the fake listings. And so they can always go back over time and click on them. And so it's like really great when they can click on it and be like, watch a listing just get completely, removed by Google. And so that's how we're able to like really show, okay, look, this is one area of our metrics that we do. Like you could look there and see, okay, reported this listing, it got removed. And oh, by the way, here's the different ranking reports that show, how you're increasing in your rankings. Here's how you're ranking, how you're dominating your market. So let's look at all these green trees. And plus, then we pull in the analytics, the phone calls, the UTMs, the conversions, and they sit there and go, okay, this is the SEO company that I was looking for. I'm glad I left X. And then all of a sudden they refer, 2 more of their friends over to us.
So what would you say has been the biggest benefit to your career to be so specialized in one area?
Yeah, I think, just listening to what Google had said, go and create a brand. So I think I've taken it a step further. I haven't just created a brand, I've created an identity. So I get a lot of love and a lot of accolades from I get a lot of respect from my colleagues and my peers, and people that have been my peers, people that I've looked up to, come to me asking me for help. I wish I didn't have to be the sheriff of Google. Thank you very much, Jamie. I know you gave me that title. Jamie is with BrightLocal, by the way, in case people don't know. I've gotten a lot of respect and love, and I also have my, anti-Jason, fan club, and I'm pretty aware of who they all are.
Yeah, you got to be cultivating that fan club as well.
Exactly.
Brilliant. So we haven't spoken about the future yet. Have you got any big goals over the next year or so?
Yes, I have some goals. I have some special projects that I am trying to push through. I'm trying to not just play whack-a-mole with spam. I'm actually trying to help push some drastically needed changes with Google, with the government, on a local and federal level. So I definitely see how we need to shift and stop doing whack-a-mole. And so now we actually need some actual, buy-in. So I think my goals are my goals are to get on 60 Minutes, get on the BBC, speak in front of Congress, and work with the federal government about trying to push some legislature. So those are my goals.
Yeah. So some small goals then, just appearing on mainstream media and getting in front of the government. Well, I am rooting for you. I hope all of those things happen. And it sounds like they need to happen really, because not just from an SEO's perspective of having to play whack-a-mole, but I guess from the consumers that are being hurt by these tactics, by these businesses who are completely illegitimate and going out there and doing really shady things on an endless basis.
Yeah, I think there's just so many people that are just so hell-bent on destroying people and hurting people. And I think that it just needs to end. And so if I have to, pick up the Captain America shield and throw it at them and knock them down, then, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'll be the Captain America and fight the good fight as long as there's a fight to be had.
What we do each time is ask 2 questions as a way of imparting some advice to our listeners. So the first is, what one skill would you recommend to a local marketer to help them develop their career over the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, so what I would recommend is run as many A/B tests as possible. So if you're going to go and start learning how to do spam fighting, then make sure you have documentation in place so you can sit there and say, okay, well, I reported these reviews via suggested edit, and this is what happened. I then followed suit and reported these listings using redressal. And 3 weeks later, the listings were gone. So I think as long as you are doing testing and you're monitoring the process, I think you're going to be in a much better position moving forward than somebody that's just kind of throwing stuff against the wall and not knowing what's working.
Yeah, I think it could speak to pretty much most aspects of marketing, that a testing and learning mentality is really key. I'm a big believer in A/B testing. We do it a lot on our website. We also do it in our product as well. So interesting to know that you can even do it on the front line of spam fighting as well. And the last question is, what advice would you give to somebody completely new to local marketing?
Well, if you're brand new, then you definitely want to do as many crash courses as you can to learn as much information as you can. Follow all the people that you can on Twitter. Again, BrightLocal had a really great who to follow on social media. Local Search Forum is a great place. Local U is great. Local Marketing Institute. Avoid any of the instant ranking factors because they don't exist. There's a whole subculture of people that will sit there and say, once you do X, you're going to rank. I know we're starting to get to a place where we don't want to say the word black hats anymore and white hats, but I think the spammers need the good guys more than the good guys need the spammers, because the spammers are always sitting there saying, well, we know everything because we're testing everything and we're just doing all these great things, and the white hat people, they don't know anything, and it's just, they're all bullocks, right? We just know the difference between white hats and the spammers is we just know a little bit more of what doesn't work and what does work, and we're not out there trying to bolster our reputations with, hey, instant rankings, instant success, because ultimately we know that there's a lot more to SEO than just a one-trick pony.
Okay, brilliant. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining. I've really enjoyed learning more about the dark arts of spam and how you go about fighting it. And so best of luck. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for you on the BBC, seeing as it's our national broadcaster. Thank you again for joining me.
Oh, it was always a pleasure. I'm always happy to help out. I love the BrightLocal team and family.
So there you have it. A big thank you again to Jason for joining me to teach me about the world of spam. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe. We're only 2 episodes in, but by subscribing, you'll be the first to know whenever a new episode drops. You can subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify. We're also on Google Podcasts now. Basically, anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find us. I wanted to thank you for listening along, and I'll be back very soon to talk to another guest about their journey through local marketing.